Hello, hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. Welcome everybody who's watching. I'm your host Ben Soda. I've got Fabrizio Aiello.
Good afternoon.
So yeah, you were gonna say something before we popped on here, and I don't remember what that was.
Is it about getting eaten by a polar bear?
It probably was. Yeah, we were talking about getting eaten by a polar bear.
Yeah. So there's an Instagram channel I follow, and they're in Svalbard. I'm not sure where that's at, but it's near. It's very north. And these videos are, and oh look, it's dark out. Everything's cozy. They just sit inside. I'm like, oh, we should live there. And then the person like switches to, and whenever we go outside, we have to carry a rifle because of polar bears. And I'm like, that sounds less cozy. Like the threat of a polar bear in the night attacking you and
Yeah,
killing you. So it comes with its downsides.
right. There's pros and cons.
But
I've
anyway,
heard those things like grow like about like 12 feet tall, like 12 feet long when they stretch out when they stand up. I'm like, that is huge. Like 9 to 12, I think is what I heard.
man, that is terrifying. I mean, in PA, we have bears. I've never seen one. I don't even know if I know anybody who's seen one. I can't imagine how I would react, though. I used to run like trails in the middle of the woods, and occasionally I would think, yeah, if a bear comes, I'm just like a snack, and then it's just going to move on. It's like there's no like you can't fight a bear, obviously. You can't
Right.
outrun a bear. Are you supposed to play dead? Is that the thing? That sounds
I
really
it
dangerous.
sounds wrong, but like, what are you gonna do?
It's like if I go to Eden Park or something, the chicken isn't going to come alive just because it's laying on the plate. Like if they accidentally give me,
Yeah,
a live chicken, I'm like, all right,
yeah,
well, I'm going to chop this chicken's head off. Like it's still going to be a meal, right?
right, yeah.
I think that's how that works.
You just put up less of a fight. It's probably easier on the bear, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, oh, he's prepared himself. It's like he gets the napkin out and ties it behind his head.
Right, a little salt and pepper.
Anyway, there's no bears inside, so that's why I draw.
Yeah, same here. So what have you been up to, man?
A bit. Yeah, I have several things going on that I'm pretty excited about. So as far as Horace H. Hoover, first issue has been out for a couple of months, which has been a lot of fun. Issue two, so it's available at alternacomics.com. Issue two is in demand, and I believe it's going to the printer this week or something like that. So pretty soon, which is really exciting. There's a few additional things I put in the second issue, which are fun. I put a fake ad in there. There was a fake ad in the first one, but I put another one in here that was pretty fun. And like a fake letters page, which actually has some story elements to it. So
Really?
if you're discerning, you might pick out some things that are like foreshadowing like future issues and characters and things like that.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. Finished issue three, so the files are done,
Nice.
delivered. I'm really happy with issue three. Like as each issue goes by, I try to like experiment with certain things. Like I feel like okay, the first issue I have these things like settled. Okay, I can lay out a page and perspective, and the second issue I'm like, okay, I'm going to do double page spread. I'm going to do more complex perspective. And then in the third issue, I really played with sort of like dense storytelling with a lot of panels on pages.
Hmm.
So I really worked on pacing. I mean, there are like three full page splashes, but then there's a couple of pages with 12 panels, and there's a
Wow.
page with 11. So um, I really tried to play with pacing in this, which was a lot of fun. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's as far as the comic. I'm about to start issue four, probably in a week or so. But actually, before I'm done with that, I'm finishing up a trailer for Horace H. Hoover, which that has been pretty fun. I've spent probably too much time on the trailer, like most things. But if you're gonna put the effort in, you might as well make it good, you
Just
know.
go all out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm doing like a hero image, and then the trailer's done. So I'm hoping like end of this week, maybe into next week, that'll be done. Um, What else? Um, oh, I was planning on showing this. I have a resin model kit currently being produced.
Awesome.
So I did a ZBrush sculpture,
Yeah.
and I think I posted it on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that. It looked really good.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm having that produced. It's a real it's a low run of like 30, so 20 painted and 10 unpainted, and they're about 5 inches tall. So I keep getting status images of that, so that's been a lot of fun. I'm hoping to get that for September because I'll be at Baltimore Comic Con. So
Okay.
those are the high level things. Yeah, I feel like I have lot of stuff like finishing, which is nice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, things are moving now.
We'll have to talk after the stream about how you go about doing that with the sculptures because that's something I'd like to do.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever done any 3D at all, or you just want to get
No,
into it?
none at all. Yeah, I'd like to have like just a little action figure type thing for my character. Oh, we've got GJ on here.
Hey, GJ, how's it going?
Long time no see, man.
Yeah, well, so this is a prototype, and this is a lot bigger, right, than the actual. Like the one
Wow.
that we produced is about 5 inches. This one was just a one-off, like 8 incher that I did.
Nice.
Um, so what I did is once I have the ZBrush file, and I'm going to post it for free. Basically, you can just use a resin printing service, like on Etsy. There's a bunch of those,
Okay.
and just give them the file, tell them how big you want the resin model to be, and then just pay them. So that way, if you want a one-off, you can get it whatever size you want. You can use whatever service you want, or if you have a 3D printer, you can print it yourself. So
Okay.
yeah, so that'll be pretty fun. I'm doing these prototypes just to make sure the file is correct, and then once I'm 100% certain the file's correct, then I'll post it for people to download and get printed wherever they want.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
It's a really
it's
cool
pretty
idea.
cool. Thanks.
So, how long does it take you to produce a comic book?
So it's been interesting because issue 1, 2, and 3 all have taken different lengths of time. Oddly, the first issue took the least amount of time.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look, especially with issue 3, there's like a secondary level of detail in it. So issue 2, there's definitely a layer of detail, and then issue 3, they're bigger images, and I kind of go for. So each one has taken a little longer to do.
GJ says I would definitely want one all painted. How much would a painted one be? So I can start saving funds on the side.
Um, I still have to get the final cost from the producer, and I will be selling this probably at cost because I just want people to have them. But my guess is it's going to be anywhere with shipping. I don't know about shipping, but just for painting and printing, something like $55, I think was what he was saying. But he's just at the beginning stage of it, so he'll kind of give me a recalibrated thing at the end. But that's roughly what I'm expecting.
Nice. That's not bad at all, honestly.
Yeah, I again, it's a really low run, and the good thing is, if people really like it and they buy all 30 of these, the prints are already there, and then making more of them is a lot easier. So hopefully, like the next run would be maybe down to 40, 45, maybe
Right.
something like that. So yeah, it's an extra thing to have outside the
Yeah.
comic book, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah, good to see you too, GJ.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I'm excited. I thought of GJ whenever I was getting these printed because he's been asking since the beginning. I think he's when he first saw the big model that I have, like the big huge one. But
So GJ says I'll buy two, one for me and one for my son.
man, that would be awesome. Yeah, and painting, I did get 10 unpainted for people that like to do that on the side. I did a poll on Twitter, I think, and I think it ended up coming to 50-50, you know, of people that wanted painted versus unpainted. But there's not that many people that paint and assemble resin model kits, so I figured
Right.
I would try this setup first and then see how it goes.
Yeah, are you gonna paint them yourself?
I might paint one or two, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I have an airbrush and I have all of that stuff. It's just I don't have time to do it usually, but
yeah,
there is something surreal about painting your own character, which is very different than painting a separate resin model kit. So we'll see.
awesome, man. So go back to your comic book. You said it's taking longer as you're going along. Is that because you're just adding so much more? Like you're trying to up the game?
Yeah, I mean, I know I probably shouldn't say that, but ultimately, I just want to make the best book I humanly can. Like, use everything at my disposal to do the best book I can. And if it takes longer, I'm going to do that. I think what might happen eventually. Oh, yep. Yeah, I thought you had mentioned way back in the day about the kit, so I thought of you. Um, the reason I'm doing it too, though, is like style. I'm not 100% certain what my end style is going to be for the book. So I'm taking it almost to like an extreme, like illustration side, and then
Mm,
it might kind of swing back a little bit and like find a really good balance between detail, but also, like I can get them done in a reasonable time. So I'm
right.
still kind of playing around with that, though. That's why I'm letting myself kind of take as long as it needs currently, to do the books. So we'll see about issue 4.
It's gonna take 6 months or so to put down that now.
I'll be announcing that from my retirement home. They're like, today we have tapioca pudding, and Fabrizio is done with issue 4.
Issue 4 is out. What takes you longer? Is it the writing process or drawing?
Definitely the drawing.
Yeah,
Um, for me, writing, I do a lot of writing as I'm drawing too, because I'm sitting at the drawing board for hours and hours and hours and hours, and my mind just wanders. Even if I have podcasts to listen to, it's inevitable. Like I'll be drawing something, and that'll make me think, oh, I should have a story that does this. Thank you, GJ. Yeah, the response has been it's been fun. It's interesting because in my head, it's not a weird. I don't think of it as a weird book or a strange book, but I can see how that might come across. So when people talk about it, I'm always interested to see how they view it. Is it weird?
right.
Is it funny? Is it, but the feedback has been really incredible. Yeah, it's been fun to see on Twitter people posting what they think of it, and can't wait to see what happens next. I am excited about the ongoing. The mini series definitely is a different approach than the ongoing. So, but I still think there's a lot more to come in the mini series that people are going to like, I think.
Do you have an overarching story for like the miniseries? Is that gonna be the difference, or what's the difference?
Uh, so the mini series, this may sound confusing, but like the first issue is 2 short stories, and then issues 2, 3, and 4 are the resolution of the Smoke Man. So that's kind of like a bigger story that's cut up into 3, and then the issue 5 is its own story.
Okay.
So I know that I sort of have all of my bases covered. I have a longer story, I have 2 short stories, and then I have a one-off. Um, so it is different, but these are the stories I wanted to tell as a setup. I thought if I out of the gate tried to explain his history and done this other stuff, I just think it would have been too much to give people at the beginning. So
Yeah.
for this, by the end of the miniseries, they'll have a really good idea of the world and how things work, and then issue 1 will be, okay, now we can get into his story and the vacuum cleaner and his powers and things like that.
Awesome. Do you have any other books or any kind of stories you want to tell? Any other characters, or is it all going to take place in this one world?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a ton of stuff that I want to do for horrors, but there are two other like ideas that have been really scratching my brain for years now, that I will do at some point in time. I don't want to get too into detail about them, but they're pretty different. One is, I mean, I'll describe it as like dark fantasy vampire type thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then another one is sort of like, we'll call it dystopian future kind of story, which is, they're all very, very different than Horse Age Hoover.
No, yeah, it
Like,
sounds like it. Yeah.
so that's why I feel like there should be a good stopping point, maybe, where I can, and they won't be ongoing. Those will be like one offs,
Right.
that I can maybe fit in between, because they have endings for those stories. Definitely, and maybe I'll even tease some of that stuff as I'm finishing up the miniseries. Might be kind of fun. But I actually think that ultimately will help Horus and how I draw, because you're not, like, if I keep drawing the same thing over and over, even with Horus, where there's a lot of potentially new artifacts or worlds or characters, you're still sort of in that same sort of style and genre.
Right.
To like sit down and have to figure out this dystopian world, or like a dark old fantasy Conan type style book, that's gonna you're gonna use muscles that you're not using every day. So I think
Yeah.
that ultimately will make a better books across the board.
Definitely. Yeah. Challenge yourself to draw something totally different, and then go back to what you're used to drawing. You're going to see a difference.
Yeah, yeah. Although it could be like, what the hell? Why is he wearing a vacuum cleaner? It'll be
What was
like
I
that.
thinking?
Yeah, a moment of clarity where I'm like, now I get it. It is weird.
GJ says, I'm curious to see the art of these potential books. Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah, I have some ideas. They'll definitely be different. I might even do like watercolor and traditional pen and ink for the
Oh, wow.
one, and the other one might be like micron kind of. I don't want to say Brian Bull and Gary Frank type stuff, but more like that
Yeah.
than my stuff currently. So yeah, um, I'm interested to see too. But yeah, I'll definitely do some teasers this year. I think that can be fun,
Yeah.
long term. So
You could even make them ads in your comic book, like in Horse.
that's true. I could buy my own ad space in the comic. I like that. That's a good idea.
Right? You're just going to put feelers out there to see what people think of those images.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, I mean, you know what it's like. You can't like, if you're a creative person at all, you can't help but have like 10 ideas at
I
any given
know.
time.
It sucks because the one you want to concentrate on, like you end up putting that in the back burner for a little bit just to let some of this through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
and you have to let it breathe too. Like,
yeah,
if you don't, like, a good example is, in the first issue there was an ad for Monster Beach Vacation, which was like a game that I had started many years ago, and I just wanted to do a fake ad, like Atari game. And I got the idea in the middle of issue 2, I think it was. I'm like, oh, that'd be really fun, but then I have to do the 3D model of the character, and I have to do the city, but I wouldn't leave my brain alone. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I'm gonna just take a week. I'm gonna switch to sculpting, like do this fake ad. Like, you have to kind of let it. Excuse me. You have to let it happen when it's at its peak, like
right.
interest. If
Yeah,
not, then that can wane, and then you're like, oh, wow. I've been thinking about it for 2 years, and now I'm getting to it. It almost doesn't feel like you don't have the passion behind it that you did
right.
at
That
the beginning.
excitement's not there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that enthusiasm definitely shows through when it's there. Blake Powell says, "Hey Benjamin Fabrizio,
Hey,
what's
Blake,
going
how's it
on, Blake?
going?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I think having a few projects is a good idea.
Yeah.
Having more than a few might be a bad idea, and downhill from there, I guess.
Now, what about the art process itself? Do you like bouncing around between pencils, inks, and colors, or do you like knock it out? Like, I'll do all the pencils, then do all the inks, do all the colors.
That's a funny you mentioned that, because I have been doing all pencils, then I switch to inks, then I do colors, then I do letters. I've been considering doing pencils, inks, and colors all in a row, like have one page that's finished and then another page that's finished. Definitely. Um, yeah, it's fun having an ad in your book of something that you like, which is really
Right.
cool. Which is cool. So the Midnight Mausoleum ad is really fun. Yeah, so I'm thinking about for issue 4, I might like change that up a little bit and see how that affects the style or my pacing. I don't know if it'll feel like it takes forever to do a page or it'll feel like I've made a lot of progress. So yeah, I might change that up a bit.
Yeah. I know when I'm working on like writing something, I'll get to the point where I need to stop writing, put writing aside, go draw something
Yeah.
because like the drawing bug is too strong, and then I'll feed that monster, and then like once I'm all drawn out, I'm like, all right, get back to your writing, or like I can't do both. I need to do some coloring. I'll go do some coloring for a while.
Yeah. I actually think that that's the like if you have multiple skills like that, it really I don't want to say that's the best like mix, but it kind of is, you know, like we were talking about, one feeds the other, and then
Right.
like all of them together create something really unique. I think potentially.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, writing is interesting. Do you have any like writing people like that give advice online? This is one of my like pet peeves that if you Google it, you get the same 10 people with like 10 things never to do in a book or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's the like because you can find a million videos on perspective and drawing and anatomy, and they're mostly accurate, I would say. Although I did
Yeah.
come across one the other day was completely wrong, and I almost did like a I almost wanted to put in the comments. I'm like, that's actually not how you do it. But I'm like, I can't do that. I can't be that guy.
Yeah. So have you come across any like writing tips? Or you're just like, no, I'm not gonna. That's not true. That doesn't work for me.
Uh, I mean, the I do Google occasionally, but I feel like I get the same stuff over and over again, and that's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
Um, I have been doing some stuff on my YouTube channel recently, which are like just things I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, as when you're in the middle of your process, I think it's a good idea to be aware of your process because that can only help you.
Yeah.
So when I find myself really mulling over a specific thing that I'm doing, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do a little video on my thoughts on writing character dialogue or my thoughts on style and stuff like that. So those have been fun to do because sometimes you need to say it out loud before it makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
So like really getting your thoughts together, getting it on video somewhere. I'm like, yeah. And then so the next time you sit down and you write, you have that, in the forefront of your thoughts. So that's been kind of fun. But I will say, I mean, that's just my views on writing and dialogue. Um, I feel like there's a lot of rules out there that aren't necessarily rules, but people treat them like rules, and they
Yeah.
talk about them like they're rules. And I don't know if I buy that at all.
So when you sit down to write and you play one of your videos and you're like, you're right, Fabrizio. That's a good point.
Well, excellent idea, Fabrizio.
This guy's a
Um,
genius.
Why wasn't I listening to him before?
Right? Yeah.
But even in the video, as I say, I'm like, this could be right or could be wrong. This is really just my views on it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, some things work for me that don't work for somebody else. I think that's really important too. Like,
Yeah.
it's just I heard the same 10 things from all these people talking about writing, and none of them stuck. Like they just didn't make any sense to me. And then I watched the master class by David Mamet,
Mm.
and he just nailed it for me. The way he described writing and characters and action, like that makes perfect sense to me. But I had listened to 20 people say kind of the same thing, and it never really stuck. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need like that really just a little different description of something for it to sink in.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're right. Like I've listened to a lot of these people talk about writing, like a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of them say the same thing, but there'll be one person who says it in a different way, just in a way that makes sense to me. That like I actually receive it, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's interesting. So maybe it's good that there's 10 million videos out there explaining the same thing because
Yeah,
they're all slightly different. Um, those have been received pretty well on my page. I had posted just inking videos, which people really didn't seem into. I would just put some music and I
yeah,
would I'd speed it up a little bit. Yeah, people watched them, but the videos where I talk seem to make a bigger impact. So
yeah,
I'll try to do more, but I also don't want to force it. Like if I'm not really mulling anything over, that I'm not going to come up with just a random topic just to talk. So that is a downside.
like polar bears and how to avoid them.
What really to do? Yeah, isn't there bear spray? Not to go back on the bear thing. I feel like I should be prepared now after your story.
I think there is. Yeah, I think there is a bear spray, and according to Batman, there's shark spray as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what is bear spray though? Is that just like bear cologne that all bears have agreed are terrible? They're like, oh
I'm like,
man.
yeah, this guy's gonna taste terrible. I'm just gonna go the other way.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. I don't know. I want to smell bear spray now.
I don't think I want to. I'm not that
Uh,
curious.
yeah. I wonder if it works on humans though.
I don't
Is it just bad? All right. Anyway, bear spray.
know. Maybe it's just pepper spray. I don't know.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know where to go from here now. Talking about bear spray.
It's research for my next comic book. Is really it's my
Yeah.
sly way of finding this out.
It'll be Horace Hoover on an iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest, like sometimes making like bizarre connections is a way to to move things forward. Like if you're stuck writing or drawing, just take two things that don't really seem like they should go together and just cram them together, and it might not work, but
Yeah.
it might work. So you never know. Nothing's off
Yeah.
the table.
That's true. It'll resonate with somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's been going on in the world of comics that you're interested in or not interested in?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because for many years, I mean, I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't really on Instagram. I was kind of on Instagram, but I would just post things and that's it. So sort of like what was happening in the world of comics, I was aware of. I would see like a YouTube channel like pop up here or there, a video about something, but mostly I had my nose buried in old comics. I would go to my local comic book shop. I you know I would walk through. I'd look at all the new stuff. I kind of flip through them. It's rare that I would see anything that sort of like caught my attention. I would grab some old issues and I'd read old issues. So I feel like I was the old guy living in a cabin who didn't have a phone. I really feel like that. So ever since I've been on Twitter, it feels like there's a lot going on. Whether it's tons of campaigns or news about this character or a movie, or it does feel like a lot is happening. That being said, I still go to my local comic book shop, buy some old comics, and read, and sit down and read very old comics. That kind of hasn't changed. There are new comic books that I am excited about. Oh, Blake had a question there.
So although Horace can travel through time dimensions, will he be going exotic places as well?
Definitely. He will definitely be going to exotic places. Yeah, I mean, he'll be going to these pocket universes, and some are going to be mundane, some are going to be pretty fantastic. I like the mix of just regular New York City apartment buildings, you know, subways, underground things, sanitariums, with like these crazy sort of alien worlds. So he's gonna be traveling all over. Now, that doesn't mean like every new adventure he's gonna spend in a particular pocket universe, but he might need to go into a pocket universe to grab a book or to follow a lead and then come back out. So to him, it's just an extension of the map. Like he doesn't consider them pocket universes. To him, like when you go down this particular alley, that just happens to be like this crazy alien, but that's normal for him. So that's why he has a map in his study that's fixed. So he fixed the map. It's like this isn't like Johnny's Bagels. This is an ancient library holding like some crazy artifact. Um, so I just like that. I like that mix. But he will also like he'll travel. Like I always, New England is such a great setting for like supernatural, paranormal kind of stuff. So he'll definitely be going, quote unquote, to the country. I have a couple of stories in mind for that. Some short stories. One where I won't get to this for a while, so I might as well give a little bit of it. But I like the idea of taking a very typical story, so like a ghost story in a haunted house or something like that, and you might have a band of adventurers or one person or something like that. And then I just like the idea of just inserting Horus into that story, you know. So I'm gonna do that more than a few times.
Nice.
Like just like take the trope and then just kind of insert Horus and just see what happens, because
Yeah.
he's inserted.
That's awesome. Sounds like fun. Let's see. GJ says, I just have to say I dig Horse's design. His suit immediately caught my attention.
Thank you. Yeah, it was interesting. I did play around a little bit with his outfit, but not much. There really wasn't much variation once I got the original vacuum cleaner suit, obviously, and then his pouches. And then from there, it was like, okay, maybe he's a little thinner. Maybe like his posture is. It was more about his character and how he holds himself, other than, giving him armor or something else. Yeah, I wanted to keep it kind of simple, because that way he didn't necessarily look like a superhero. I mean, he
Right.
looked like a guy wearing a vacuum cleaner on his head with pouches, but you could see him in sort of like a team of superheroes
Yeah.
at that time period, we'll say.
Right. Yeah, it's almost got this like retro futuristic kind of feel
Oh,
to
that's
the
cool.
outfit.
Yeah,
Kind of like the 50s Fallout 4 kind of way.
that's
I
cool.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever we get into where he starts like making devices, which he does in issue, you'll see something in issue 2, but you'll see something. Actually, you'll see something in issue 3 too. Um, so the devices they're not like, I don't want to call them steampunk or anything like that. It's sort of like cobbling together stuff though. Um, but yeah, I can see like a retro futuristic, but also junk. To some degree, it'll look like junk, and
Yeah.
it'll look like it should not work, but it does, and that will get explained later on. But that's fun stuff to draw for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the inspiration for the suit?
I mean, the head was just, it made me chuckle,
Right.
with the balance and all that kind of stuff. But the suit, it's the 30s. Everybody wore suits,
Okay.
Um, I could have done like a bomber jacket. I could have done other things. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. But I wanted him to stick out in a crowd, and I just pictured like, I'm trying to think of I don't want to use the Matrix, like a city street filled with people. But then I just imagined this red vacuum cleaner just like sticking out in the back.
Right.
So that made me laugh again. I'm like,
Yeah.
I like that. So that's really was it. And the pouches, I mean, I love pouches. I'm not going to deny when people complain about pouches. I'm like, I like them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can have too many, but there's just something about them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It just looks like he's got stuff. Like he's ready to go. He's prepared.
yeah. And like I said, when he makes stuff, he's going to utilize the stuff in his pouches. So they're not purely superficial like costume type things. I mean, he
Right.
actually uses what's in there, and you'll see him go in and grab stuff. Because I really wanted to make them utilitarian.
Right. So they'll have bear spray, shark spray.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
all he has in there.
That's awesome.
He does have glue and construction paper and scissors,
Nice. Safety scissors.
safety scissors, a sandwich, things like that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Anybody out there in the chat have any questions? So we were talking about comics earlier.
Right.
Is there any new stuff coming out that you're excited to see?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the new Alterna. I'm not on this campaign, but a lot of great stuff, which I guess is considered I was getting spring campaign. But outside of my very biased Alterna, I actually came across something the other day which I really love. We Are Scarlet Twilight. Have you seen this?
No, I don't think I have.
I haven't backed it yet, but it just popped up. So when you're like, "Is there anything new?" I'm like, "That is brand new." I don't. It might have been out for a while. Really cool though. I gotta check it out. It's like a pulp looking character. Really well done. Looks really cool. I'm a pulp kind of guy when it comes to anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to old episodes of The Shadow, and
Yeah.
there's something in Pittsburgh called Pulp Fest, and it's very
That's cool.
very geared towards pulp characters. So
Yeah.
whenever I'm looking at new stuff, if it's got like a feel of pulp, I immediately like gravitate towards it. That's the only thing I can think of offhand. I mean, I know there's lots of new campaigns. Is there something that you were thinking of that you had in mind?
Me personally, I think the one I'm more excited about, or most excited about, is Blaster Kid.
Oh my God, Richard Friend stuff.
Yeah, that looks beautiful.
I cannot recommend his Patreon, like his lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I take his lessons,
Really?
and
Okay.
yeah, he has done extraordinary with that.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, his artwork, like, I remember whenever the Wildcats, I guess it was the second series, the stuff that he inked of Travis's.
Travis is amazing. Yeah.
I mean, I used to just stare at that stuff over. That's
Yeah.
one of like my ultimate like series of books. And then I can't remember how I found Richard Friend. He has a YouTube channel where he kind of goes over artists. I think that's where I found him, like back in sort of the community or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I found out he had Patreon. Then I signed up for his Patreon, and then I got lessons. So yeah, he'll go over he's seen every Horus page before it's gone out,
That's cool.
and all of his input is just spot on and stellar every single time.
Yeah.
There's never been a time where I'm like, no, that's not. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. This finger has to turn 90 degrees or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Blaster Kid.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's probably the only campaign that I can think of that I'm just like really anticipating.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I might have missed it. Is there a pre-launch yet? Yeah, there
I
is,
think
right?
there's a sign up page for it.
There's
Yeah.
sign-up page, yeah, but nothing else as far as
Yeah.
like timeline. Yeah, if anybody's an artist at all, I highly recommend checking out his Patreon. Like, he has probably 1,000 videos at this point. I don't know.
Oh wow. Okay.
Really great information. Not to go too but I highly recommend it. I mean, I went to art school. I've read a million books, and
Yeah.
I really think his info is like some of the best I've ever seen. So
Yeah. No, it's definitely different getting it from somebody who's in the business that you're trying to, or that you're partaking of, I guess.
yeah. I think that's it. But yeah, check out We Are Scarlet Twilight. I haven't got the book yet, but it looks really,
I'm
really
gonna
cool.
look it up right now.
Um, in fact, I've been so like in this pulp mindset that I went back and rewatched The Phantom from the '90s. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Billy Zane.
Billy Zane. I mean, it wasn't a great movie then, and I mean, it has a certain charm, we'll say, for the
Okay, yeah,
time.
this looks really cool. Let me. Can I share this? I'm an old man with this stuff, so I don't know if I can get it.
Yeah, I don't. I think you should be able to, but I never do. I use OBS.
Oh, gotcha. No, it's gonna show this screen. I hate it when it does that. I need two monitors. That's what I need.
Yeah,
Let me buy a second monitor.
but I think, at least for me, there's like this kind of cool. Like I get info on new stuff, and I'm looking at old stuff. So it's like a constant back and forth for me, which is kind of cool because I can see in the old stuff the stuff. I'm like, all right, well maybe there was a little too much dialogue in that, or this or that. And then I see
Yeah,
the new stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, but they left out this cool stuff from the old stuff that I liked, So it's sort of a constant reminder of the things that I like. And
yeah,
I try to put that in Horace H. Hoover. I think as each issue goes by, I'm adding more of it for sure. But
that's awesome. We probably talked about this before, but what artists inspire you?
well, Richard Friend,
Richard Friend.
yeah, the stuff that like his stuff with Travis.
Yeah,
Although it's interesting, I've been thinking about this recently. Like, what artists inspire? It's almost like they need two different buckets. Inspire, as in, that's amazing, but I could never do it. And then inspire, I'm like, it's amazing, but yeah, maybe I could do something like it. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Like, I never could draw like Travis. I don't think that's even remotely possible.
yeah,
But like John Buscema or Wrightson, I'm like, there are aspects of their art that I think I could incorporate into mine.
yeah.
Um, and I get on kicks, a lot of kicks. Most recently, man, that is a good question. I'm gonna look at my Instagram real quick. Like, who have I saved like 15 times over
Yeah.
in the past week or something? Um,
Well, a lot of times, like for me personally, it's just like seeing an artist who does something particularly just really well, and you try and replicate that in your own artwork. Not that you're trying to draw like him, like his whole style, but just like
yeah,
really like the way he draws legs, for example, or eyes, or
yeah.
mouths.
Yeah, and some are like, wow. Well, a good example for me is Gene Colan. His
Oh
Dracula,
yeah,
Tomb of Dracula stuff is
yeah,
really incredible, but I will say, and not that I mean, like his storytelling can get confusing to me sometimes.
yeah,
So that's where I'm like, okay, the art is just stellar, but I get confused at the storytelling a little bit. And that could just be me. So
no,
I'm like,
I was
go
gonna say
ahead.
like a lot of those artists back then, they kind of came from like that illustration background, so it's almost like each piece tells a story, not necessarily that a series of
Yeah,
panels tell the story. And I think he's one of those artists where he's really focused on just creating a great panel, a great piece.
yeah, I think that's a perfect explanation for it. Um, so some are really just great at like clarity, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
wow, this is just it's such an easy read. I'm going to try to mimic that or pull from that. Yeah, it's funny because artists, I do like fine art too. So like, I look a lot at a lot of that stuff. As far as current comic book artists, I always gravitate towards the old ones. I hate to say
yeah. No,
that.
I do
like
too.
like even we'll call Jim Lee a new artist, even though he's not a new artist. I still
Yeah,
like his older stuff better than
yeah,
like the new stuff. So, or it's inkers too, who will say, just using Jim Lee. Somebody posted an image of the Punisher that Jim Lee had done, It's awesome, awesome. Like just a full shot of the Punisher. But the inking, and I didn't check to see who the inking was. I don't think it was Klaus. I don't know who the inker was, but he
Okay.
did such a great job with Jim Lee. Um, Sometimes you just gotta like, okay, like, am I just gonna kind of mimic this style of brick? You know,
Right.
like I get
Yeah.
really piecemeal with artists. You know,
Yeah.
when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah, I guess that's it. Can't think of any other artist offhand. Um, I am reading Sectars, which is an old '80s like toy line and comic book,
Okay.
and I just realized this is actually fun too. When you read old comics, you don't realize, oh, that was Tex. So Mark Texiera,
Yeah.
um, like I know him from later stuff like Wolverine and Sabretooth,
Right.
and yeah, but I didn't realize he did a lot of the older stuff. It's interesting to see like evolution of artists too. You know, he was doing like the very, it's not very dynamic, but it's really serviceable, really good artwork in the Sectars comic. And then you see him doing this crazy stuff, you know, with Sabretooth and Wolverine.
Right.
So that's pretty interesting to see too. Like, was that a conscious decision to go from sort of like this clean stuff to this really like expressive stuff? But yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool to see their growth. I remember I picked up this old Superman comic book, and it was drawn by Steve Epting, and his style, like on Captain America stuff at the time, that I was a fan of, and seeing his
yeah,
old Superman stuff is just so different.
yeah. It's kind of crazy. I wonder how that like evolves. I mean, as an artist, you just sometimes you're not aware of your evolution. You know,
Right.
sometimes you are though. So I will say this though, you should maybe I'm overly aware of it sometimes because sometimes when you see an artist like degrade like over the
Oh yeah.
years,
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, I whatever I do, I don't want to degrade. Like
Right.
it has to be, even if it's not like a style that people like, at least as long as it's headed in a direction, you know.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, are there any conventions around you that you go to or?
My favorite one to go to here in Oklahoma is called OFCON, and it stands for Oklahoma Alliance of Fans, and it's just comic books, straight comic books. There's no toys, there's no
Yeah.
cosplay. It's straight comic books, and they do have like older stuff. Like here, I'll show you. It's old. I don't know if you can see it. Here we go. Prince Valiant.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I picked a few of these up there. There's another one.
That's awesome. I've never read those. I would love to have a collected edition like that.
Yeah, I love this stuff just because the artwork is so beautiful. This is Harold Foster. So I can show this off here.
Man, it hurts. It hurts how good that stuff
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it's funny because it is interesting that like the art form in general just evolved
Yeah.
like to such a degree. But you go back to that old stuff and you're like, these are just incredible drawings. Every single panel is just like this amazing
Yeah.
illustration. I do wonder, and I don't know if you know this, do you have any sense of like how long it took to do stuff like that?
I have no idea.
I've never heard anybody, because like comic book pages, we always hear a page a day kind of thing, you know,
Right.
or more. But
Yeah.
man, if they tell me they did like 10 panels a day, I swear I'm quitting. And
Yeah. Yeah. Those guys back then, like I said earlier about people coming from that illustration background, and I think a lot of them came from that.
yeah,
And they're just beautiful pieces, and they're so simple, but they tell the story in that one piece.
yeah. It is. It's interesting. I mean, talking about Buscema, he's probably like in the '80s the most prolific. If I had to guess, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I wonder because he would ink himself a lot, or I think he would have his brother do. He liked his brother inking his stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder if you get away with a lot more if you ink your stuff, you know, because they're not doing really tight pencils, they're inking it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I can do 3 pages a day because I'm inking and drawing. I've never gotten to a point where I can, like, my pencils have to get like really tight
Really?
for me
Yeah.
to do the inks.
Okay.
I would love to get to a point where I can kind of do these loose pencils.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the subject matter too, like if I do my dark fantasy, whatever, maybe that'll be easier to rough in some pencils and do
Right.
inks clean. But when I'm doing like detailed backgrounds with perspective, man, like one line out of whack and like it's really obvious. So
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely genre plays an important role. I mean, if you did something like fantasy or horror, that's another one you
Yeah.
can get away with being a little loose on.
Yeah. So, the drawing I just posted today on Twitter is Horace in front of like his library with like there's all these books and these shelves and all this like ephemera, and I'm like, good Lord, why did I pick this?
Yeah.
Like, couldn't it be Horace in the desert? Maybe he's like Lawrence of Arabia, and he just he's in the desert. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Puck universe is just white walls around. Yeah.
Exactly. I think the next 2 issues are going to be in a pocket universe where there is no furniture or no paintings or anything.
See, GJ says, Fabrizio, your sketch cards are amazing. Yes, they are. Thank you for doing the ones I have from you. Would like more eventually.
Thank you, GJ. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've mentioned this before, but man, the sketch cards have helped my drawing so much. Like I think drawing small really it's a skill in and of itself. There's like,
Yeah.
can I draw anatomy and perspective and characters? Can I do comics? And then can I draw really tiny,
Yeah.
and convey it? It's really it's a skill in and of itself. And these sketch cards have really helped me kind of hone that skill.
Yeah, you've blown
Uh,
those sketch cards away, man. Those 3 tier ones that you did, those are
oh,
beautiful. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun doing different things with them too. Because sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm just gonna do Horus so like playing around with it, whether it was like the Christmas Carol one, that was really
Yeah.
fun to do. Like the comic, those have been pretty fun. I always think of Mark Silvestri, his early stuff,
Oh, yeah.
like his X-Men stuff. I mean, everything is tiny, but man, they're really well drawn. It blows
Yeah.
me away. Really blows me away. Um, I will say this for Horace H. Hoover. Right now, it's Horace, and he does have Max and Sam with him. I'm sorry, Max and Sam, Max and Slurp with him sometimes. So it's not a quote unquote team book, but there are times where there's like the team element.
Mhm.
Man, when you add a few more characters in, it becomes quite a bit more difficult just on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So like to do the X-Men now, I think about like, 6 characters sometimes, anywhere from 4 to 6 characters. Man, that's brutal. That's
Yeah,
brutal.
it is.
So what's that?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say in the future, I'm going to be introducing the knots, which I've hinted at. I've talked about a little bit. Essentially, they're characters that can also travel through pocket universes. So there will be sort of like a team book element, more of
Nice.
that in the future, when we get to the ongoing series and the world and worlds kind of open up. But I am a little concerned that I'm like, oh crap, like 10 characters, 7 characters, but
Wow.
you got to figure it out. That's where character design is everything. Like
Yeah.
if your characters look the same, you are screwed. You're screwed.
Yep.
So,
How many characters are in that team, in that Knots team?
well, knots are, and I don't even know if I've mentioned this publicly, but knots are essentially people that have mastered a craft
Hmm.
to such a degree that they sort of like are elevated to like this status. So an engineer that becomes the greatest engineer at that moment, at that time, in the world, and then all of a sudden they can travel through pocket universes. So there will be sort of like a, and I'll get into this in the ongoing, but yeah, the idea is that all of these knots share this, and they're all, so you'll have an engineer, you'll have a chef, you could have a tailor, a clockmaker or something like that. And they will all have like one skill set or something that makes them a knot. And because of that, they can travel through pocket universes. And I'll get into that lore and that later on, but that is sort of like the next big story arc for
That's
Horus.
awesome, man. That's a fun idea.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because there are levels to knots too. So, you know, if I'm an engineer and I have to make something to go through a pocket universes, I essentially have to carry all of my equipment with me. So you get into this thing where, like, kind of like the book bug, you have to like carry stuff with you, because if you go through a pocket universe and your machine breaks down, then you've got to fix it. So it lends itself to a lot of visual cool stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I'm excited about that, but that's definitely down the road.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun.
Yep.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
No. Yeah, I think that's it for the most part. Just keep an eye out for like the latest Alterna campaign. You know, that's always on Twitter. The fall, summer, spring. Horse will be on there eventually, but there's a lot of other good books. And I'm on Twitter. I will be probably blasting out a newsletter with the resin model kit, you know. And the most recent thing will be the trailer. So I'm very excited about the trailer. I will be posting the heck out of that because I spent way too much time on that.
When are you posting that? Like, what day is that?
I'm hoping like the middle of next week.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll see. I'll keep people posted on that though.
And is it animated or is it just like just images?
It's images, but I did like After Effects animation, so I cut up
Okay.
some characters and there's some like motion graphics animation.
Gotcha.
I did the best I could,
Yeah.
you know, and I could spend like 3 months on this thing, and like that would be bad. So, but it's pretty cool. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, no problem. It was cool catching up with you. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Definitely.
sure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.